How does a priceless piece of art weighing 38 tons go missing? Let's talk about it, and a few other works that have gone missing over the years. While doing research for the Richard Serra piece, I was reminded of a work of his that I saw last year in Madrid at the Reina Sofia. The work is titled Equal Parallel Guernica Benghazi. It's a room-sized piece made, of course, of his signature steel, and it weighs 38 tons. I found out that it was placed in storage in 1990, and then in 2005, the museum director wanted to display the work and found out that it had gone missing, which I think is absolutely wild. How do you lose 38 tons of steel, let alone a priceless piece of art? Serra eventually struck a deal with the museum to recreate the piece, and in 2009, a replica was installed and is still on exhibition. The original still hasn't been found. And this got me thinking about another piece that I'm quite fond of that also has a history of going missing, but in this case, it was eventually found, which is The Myth of Tomorrow by Taro Okamoto. The piece is 30 meters long and depicts the horrors of an atomic bomb explosion. The interesting history of this piece is that it was originally commissioned for the hotel lobby of a new hotel in Mexico City in 1968. But when the hotel fell into financial troubles, the mural was removed and apparently passed through many hands before it essentially disappeared for 3 decades. Again, another wild disappearance because the work is freaking massive. In 2003, it did resurface, however, being discovered in a building materials yard in the suburbs of Mexico City, where it was in a complete state of disrepair due to years of improper storage. It was thankfully restored, and now it sits in Shibuya Station for all to see. There's an interesting connection between this and the Serra piece. Serra's piece referencing Picasso's Guernica, which is also at the Reina Sofia, and it's also a piece about bombing and destruction and death, which is what Okamoto's piece is essentially about, but from a Japanese perspective rather than the European one. Here's a few more modern pieces that have gone missing. The first is Frida Kahlo's The Wounded Table, which again, another large piece, not as big as the two aforementioned pieces, but this one measures 2.5 meters long and was much larger than she tended to produce in her career. She mostly painted smaller pieces. It's a beautiful piece. It depicts a table splattered with blood and framed by a theatrical curtain, with Kahlo seated center, surrounded by a pre-Columbian Nayarit figure, a papier-mâché skeleton, 2 children, and her pet deer, Granzio. It's thought that after displaying the work in Mexico City, she gifted the work to a museum collection in the Soviet Union. Kahlo herself, being a communist, would often gift works to collectors and cultures she had an affinity for. The Wounded Table would be last seen in 1955, being displayed at an exhibition in Warsaw, Poland, before disappearing from view ever since. There was a brief lead in 2019 when a man was arrested for apparently attempting to sell the painting. Authorities were tipped off when he attempted to have documents of the sale notarized, the documents stating that he would give the painting in exchange for a 20 million peso house in Acapulco. The painting, however, was never presented or found during that arrest.